nobody is coming after gay marriage. It's been enshrined into federal law.
Babe, is that so? Because last time I checked, people are coming for gay marriage. And I hope you feel really stupid right now.
A TikTok star with 9 million followers just called me out, but she doesn't actually have any idea what she's talking about. We're going to break this down, plus so much more, on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. Up first, guys, we're going to do a quick segment. And normally I wouldn't necessarily kind of talk about this, but this person has a lot of followers and they have decided to call me out. So we are going to respond to the Democratic, openly liberal, lesbian TikTok star and influencer, Avery Cyrus. No relation to Miley, our queen. I was curious about that, but I don't actually think there is any. Anyway, she has more than 9.4 million followers. And she's decided to call me out. The context that you need to know here is that right before the election, I did a response video to a bunch of these TikTok stars who were spreading, propaganda for why Trump is bad. And they were saying some misleading things like, I'm against Trump because I want to marry my girlfriend one day, is one of the things Avery said, which I found strange because Trump is fine with gay marriage. And that wasn't really an electoral issue. And it still isn't. But Avery has decided, given the recent Supreme Court news, it's not really news, as we talked about previously on the podcast, to do a victory lap and explain how terrible and wrong I was, apparently, or something. Let's watch.
So this is happening right now, and I would just like to take this moment to say, I told you so, and I hope you feel really stupid right now. Am I too political? My bad. I just want to be able to marry my girlfriend one day.
Babe, nobody is coming after gay marriage. It's been enshrined into federal law.
Babe, is that so? Because last time I checked, people are coming for gay marriage, and the Supreme Court is listening and taking into consideration, the same Supreme Court that is 6-3 conservative, because 3 out of the 6 of the conservative members of the Supreme Court were appointed by Donald Trump. I just want to be able to marry my girlfriend one day.
Trump literally does not care if gay people marry each other.
Okay, you can say he doesn't, but the administration he is setting up does very much care. Exhibit A. And for all the people in the community that thought this isn't going to affect me, for all the people that are not in the community, who have people that you love in the community that thought this isn't going to affect me, you're selfish. For the record, we still do have the right to gay marriage, and I pray that never gets taken away. But I think the fact that it's even a consideration by the Supreme Court is insane, especially in 2025 when there are so many things wrong with this world that need to be figured out. Gay marriage is not one of them. A man marrying a man and a woman marrying a woman is not and should never be one of them.
Oh my gosh. She really thought she cooked. She really thought she did her big one. She ate me up. But she doesn't understand anything about how politics works. Like, can influencers who know nothing about civics, can they just not speak on politics? She seems like a sweet girl. She really does. But she just doesn't actually know how any of this political or government stuff actually works. So basically everything in this video is wrong, but and I'm going to go over it. But first, I just want to read some of the comments. She came with the receipts. Did she? Did she? Are the receipts in the room with us right now? Segregation is next. It's not going to stop. This is just the beginning. Not even 1 year in. Okay, put down the crack pipe, friend. You've had enough. Inscribed in federal law, so was Roe v. Wade, and look how that turned out. Great point, except for the fact that it's literally not true. Roe v. Wade was not enshrined into federal law. Congress repeatedly tried to codify it into federal law, but it didn't pass. So all there was a Supreme Court decision establishing it, and when that decision was overturned, it all was gone. That is totally different from gay marriage, where the Respect for Marriage Act under the Biden administration, essentially, it's a little different, but it essentially codified access to gay marriage in all 50 states into federal law, and that would remain in place even if the Supreme Court overturned Obergefell v. Hodges, the case that established gay marriage nationwide in 2015. So it's actually quite different. One of them is guaranteed in federal law, regardless of what happens with the Supreme Court, and one of them wasn't. So, sorry, you just, once again, don't know what you're talking about. And interesting how Avery never actually addressed that point in my original video whatsoever, that it's enshrined into federal law. Just kept it moving. Pulling the receipts, they could never make me hate you. I mean, I don't want anyone to hate Avery, but again, are these receipts in the room with us? Because I'm not seeing them. We love a queen who backs up their statement with facts. Clap emoji. Oh no, not the facts. I don't know how I'll ever recover from being owned with these facts and this logic. Guys, I'm going to explain to you in a little more detail just how strange this video is after this. If you've been living on credit cards to cover your gas, groceries, and bills, you know those interest rates are brutal. So why keep paying 20% interest or more to the banks when you could call my friends at American Financing today? They have mortgage rates in the 5s, and they are showing people every day how to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets and out of the hands of credit card companies. Right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high-interest debt, with no upfront fees, no obligation, and just a 10-minute call to a salary-based mortgage consultant. And here's the kicker. If you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, putting more cash in your hands. So don't wait. Call American Financing now at 866-891-4811. That's 866-891-4811. 866-891-4811, or visit americanfinancing.net/Brad Polumbo. You'll be glad you did. Now, back to today's show. Okay, guys, so we already talked about this on the podcast, so I don't want to rehash this in too much detail or at great length, but just briefly. This person doesn't understand how the Supreme Court works or what the actual news development they are responding to is. So the story about the Supreme Court receiving a request to revisit the gay marriage case made tons of headlines. I covered it on this podcast, prompted a lot of panic, but it's just from some lady, Kim Davis, who has a unique case from years ago where she refused to participate in gay marriages and lost, who wants it overturned. This would have happened, this request, whether Trump had won the election or Kamala had won the election. It actually has nothing to do with the Trump administration, really. And more importantly, it is just a request to hear the case. That's it, which is not actually a notable development. The Supreme Court receives about 10,000 requests a year, according to the National Constitution Center, and accepts about 1% of those. So if the Supreme Court were to accept the case, that would be a big development. Even then, it wouldn't necessarily mean that they were going to overturn it, but it would at least be a sign that they might. But simply someone requesting that this case be heard does not actually prove that anything is going to happen. It's not actually a particularly significant development at all. It happens all the time on all sorts of cases across all sorts of issues, and then nothing ever happens. So to cite this event as if I told you this would happen is, it's smug and it's kind of aggravating, but more than anything, it's just deeply ignorant. You don't understand how this stuff works. Now, of course, I agree with her that gay marriage shouldn't be revisited. I think it's settled law. I think it's not harmful for society. And I think tens of thousands of people rely on it as an institution at this point. And what's interesting is that actually a number of the conservative Supreme Court justices seem to agree, which is why Brett Kavanaugh actually specifically noted in his decision that he ruled joining the decision overturning Roe v. Wade that he did not want to cast doubt on Obergefell or other cases such as that. So it's interesting. She says, well, yeah, Trump appointed 3 justices. That's true. But of the current 6-3 conservative majority, really only Alito and Thomas, so 2 of the 9 justices, are for sure people who would vote to overturn gay marriage. The other ones it's really not clear at all that they would. John Roberts does not want to rock the boat, does not want to overturn longstanding precedent. Neil Gorsuch actually authored an entire opinion expanding gay rights in the past. Brett Kavanaugh signaled that he doesn't want to overturn gay marriage. I mean, again, all of this is possible, and thankfully, even in the case that it was overturned, which again, I think is incredibly unlikely, it would be protected under federal law still. You would be able to access gay marriage in all 50 states. You may have to go to another state to get married, but then you could come back and every state would have to honor that marriage license. So it wouldn't be ideal, but it would still be available in all 50 states. But again, I really don't think that's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, to be clear. I think it's extremely unlikely. What I am saying is that this gotcha that you're trying to pull is premature. Nothing has happened of any notable development whatsoever. So this victory lap is just embarrassing for you. You're just reminding us that you don't know how any of this works and should stick to the cute do-it-yourself tutorials and the other kind of content that made you popular in the first place, not run your mouth about politics when you have no knowledge or understanding whatsoever. I really feel like that's not too much to ask. And then there's just millions of people being hopelessly misled by this person in the comments. Wonderful stuff. Great job, really. Again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it will happen. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's very unlikely, and that you trying to pull I told you so based on what's happened so far makes no sense and only reveals your own ignorance. Other than that, amazing stuff. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Hit that like button while you're at it. Remember to send in your voicemails for my Voicemail Friday episodes where I react to your woke horror stories, give you advice on your personal life situations, and answer any questions you guys have for me. The link, as always, to send one of those in is in the description. Okay, up next, we got to talk about a big move out of the Trump administration that is raising some eyebrows. Trump just signed an executive order on flag burning the American flag, and made some pretty explicit and direct remarks about it that are actually being praised by many conservative commentators, despite the First Amendment and free speech concerns being raised. First, guys, here's the clip of Trump speaking about this.
Lastly, sir, this is an executive order on flag burning. It charges your attorney general.
Would you listen to this? This is very important. Flag burning. All over the country, they're burning flags. All over the world, they burn the American flag. And as you know, through a very sad court, I guess it was a 5-4 decision, they called it freedom of speech. But there's another reason, which is perhaps much more important. It's called death. Because what happens when you burn a flag is the area goes crazy. If you have hundreds of people, they go crazy. You can do other things. You can burn this piece of paper. But when you burn the American flag, it incites riots at levels that we've never seen before. People go crazy. In a way, both ways. There are some that are going crazy for doing it. There are others that are angry about them doing it. Do you want to discuss that?
Sure. So what the executive order does, sir, it charges your Department of Justice with investigating instances of flag burning, and then where there's evidence of criminal activity, where prosecution wouldn't fall afoul of the First Amendment, and instructs the Department of Justice to prosecute those who are engaged in these instances of flag burning.
And what the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail, no early exits, no nothing. You get 1 year in jail. If you burn a flag, you get, and what it does is incite to riot. I hope they use that language, by the way. Did they?
Okay, incitement.
Incite to riot. And you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail. You don't get 10 years, you don't get 1 month. You get 1 year in jail, and it goes on your record. And you will see flag burning stopping immediately.
So this clip was interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One of which is there's just a couple things Trump says that make me raise my eyebrow. For example, he keeps asking his aide what's in the executive order. Did you put the language about the incitement and riots? And it's like, shouldn't you know what's in the executive order that you're about to sign? Shouldn't you have read it? Call me crazy. Call me old-fashioned. And again, he's talking about 1 year in jail for burning the flag. That's actually not in the executive order anywhere. It's the executive order itself is much more limited and narrow in its scope, but Trump doesn't have the power to just sign an executive order creating a new criminal offense, even if it was constitutional, which again, he even mentions the 5-4 Supreme Court decision, the famous Texas versus Johnson, where the conservative Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia ruled that flag burning was protected by the First Amendment. Even mentions that, but then he's like, but that's bad, so we're going to do a year in jail. What do you mean? You can't just write an executive order changing a Supreme Court decision. Like, this isn't how any of this works. And I'm very concerned by the lack of coherency and knowledge that we just witnessed in this clip. And also what he's saying about burning the flag, it causes riots and causes violence, isn't really true. I mean, people burn the flag as part of protests all the time without violence occurring. Someone actually was just arrested for burning the American flag in response to this announcement outside of the White House. Now, they were arrested because they violated rules where you can't burn things in a public park without a permit. They were not arrested for the crime itself, which again doesn't exist, of burning the flag, but like they burned it and no riots started. That's not actually a thing. And more interestingly would be that even if it was, that wouldn't be a reason to outlaw speech. Well, people get really upset and start attacking people. That's not what incitement to violence means. You would have to actually instruct people, like, go attack that person. That would be a incitement of violence or an incitement of a riot. But what he's saying is essentially that you could have a heckler's veto. So, for example, that same logic could be used to say, well, you can't burn the rainbow flag because angry social justice warriors will start a riot if you do that. Like, no, actually, your free speech is not dependent on how other people respond to it. That's on them, not you. So a lot of misunderstandings here. And then I want to look at the actual text of the executive order itself, because it's much more limited than what Trump says. He keeps saying, like, this will stop flag burning. I actually think it's probably going to see a remarkable increase in flag burning because people are going to do it to protest this. But when this executive order titled Prosecuting Burning the American Flag has some things in it that I find interesting, but it basically just talks about how, okay, well, to the extent we're allowed, given the First Amendment precedent by the Supreme Court, we're going to try to prosecute cases that involve this, even though we can't prosecute it itself. So to that extent, it's either redundant or it's unconstitutional. Though it does say here that they may pursue litigation to clarify the scope of the First Amendment exceptions in this area. So Trump seems to think that this executive order announces that it will now be illegal to burn the American flag. It doesn't. It says they will prosecute crimes that involve burning the American flag and go after it and other such things, and then they will try to clarify the scope of what they're allowed to do. It's like pretty limited, and again, it's one of two things. It's either redundant and adds nothing new to federal policies and federal law, or it is unconstitutional. But there's some language in here that I found interesting. So as part of explaining why this is necessary, the White House says, quote, desecrating it, the American flag, is uniquely offensive and provocative. It is a statement of contempt, hostility, and violence against our nation, the clearest possible expression of opposition to the political union that preserves our rights, liberty, and security. So what's interesting there is that they're identifying this act of speech, which I agree is offensive. I love America. I believe in it, and I love our country. But they're saying, like, oh, this is just too offensive. This act of speech is too uniquely offensive to be allowed. I don't believe in that as a concept. And I think that is very similar to progressives who argue, well, hate speech is just too offensive to be allowed. Offense is subjective, and everything is offensive to somebody and unoffensive to others. And I don't want to start curtailing people's ability to speak based on how subjectively offensive their expression is to other people. And then when he says that it is an act of violence against our nation, that's just literally not true. Like, it's not. Words are not violence. I don't know. Am I in a progressive struggle session now? Expressive acts that don't involve violence aren't violence. And once you start conflating words with violence, that takes you down a very dangerous path. So more than anything, I mean, to the extent that Trump tries to criminalize flag burning, that will be blocked in the courts because there's very clear Supreme Court precedent saying you can't do that. And that precedent was authored by the conservative legend who Trump has repeatedly praised, Antonin Scalia. Here's a clip of the late Scalia speaking about this.
If I were king, I would not allow people to go about burning the American flag. However, we have a First Amendment which says that the right of free speech shall not be abridged, and it is addressed in particular to speech critical of the government. I mean, that was the main kind of speech that tyrants would seek to suppress. Burning the flag is a form of expression. Speech doesn't just mean written words or oral words. It could be semaphore. Burning a flag is a symbol that expresses an idea. I hate the government is unjust, whatever.
So I do find this strange because Trump seems to think his executive order that he apparently hasn't read does something that it doesn't. That is enormously concerning to me about how this White House is being run and just the coherency of it all. And then I was also aggravated, although not surprised, to see a lot of the biggest MAGA YouTubers on the internet, the biggest conservative free speech warrior personalities, although that doesn't apply to one of these people, essentially praised this. For example, Matt Walsh said, "Yes, make it a crime to burn the American flag. Desecration of the gay pride flag is already prosecuted as a hate crime in this country. No more double standards. If the sacred symbol of the LGBT cult is protected, American flags should be too. Simple as that." So the problem with this argument is that it's based on a lie or a falsehood at the very least. It is not illegal to burn the pride flag. You can go purchase on Amazon a pride flag right now and burn it on your property or in a place where you're allowed to burn things, and you will absolutely not face any criminal charges or punishment. That is protected free speech. There has never been a single case of anyone doing that and being prosecuted and charged with a crime. What there have been are instances where people vandalize other people's property. So they go and steal someone else's rainbow flag and light it on fire. That's vandalism. That's illegal. And conservatives are supposed to believe in property rights. So those are the kinds of things. And then sometimes the sentences associated with that kind of thing can be excessive because hate crimes charges, which I'm not even really sure I believe in the concept of hate crimes as a concept, but it is what it is. It's been settled in our law for years now. Those get tacked on, and then you have excessive sentences. But when they say that, oh, well, it's illegal and a hate crime to burn the pride flag, they're lying, or they're just being inaccurate. That's not true. And even if it were true, I'm not sure the response to some censorship would be more censorship, would be the response to insufficient free speech would be curtailing free speech even more. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but again, it's just based on a false premise. And then, of course, you have the Daily Wire host Michael Knowles putting thumbs up and the American flag emoji, saying that Texas v. Johnson was wrongly decided, which, that is a legitimate debate. Obviously, it was a contentious constitutional decision at the time. I'm not saying there's no room for debate or disagreement about the constitutionality of it, but at least in Michael's case, he openly admits that he supports censorship. He doesn't really claim to be a proponent of free speech. At least, I disagree with him strongly, but he wrote a whole book about how he supports censorship. So it's not so inconsistent from him as it is from all the, people who mock safe spaces and snowflakes and say we don't need protection from offensive ideas and actions and speech. It's not as inconsistent from him. I'll give him credit that far, but I still strongly disagree with it. And then what is inconsistent is that he is cheering on a president just announcing a change to criminal law via executive order. That's not how our constitutional order works. Even if that's not what's happening, but that's what Trump seems to think is happening. You would have to pass a law through Congress that the president could then sign. But we don't have a king, and you can't just announce new criminal laws with a stroke of a pen. That's not even how that would work if it were such a thing to happen. But then again, even that's not necessarily inconsistent for Michael because, he pretty much is open that he wants a Catholic king at this point. That's the kind of system of government he favors. So I don't think he's necessarily hypocritical. I think the Matt Walshes of the world and the Charlie Kirks of the world who claim to be free speech warriors but then champion this kind of thing are hypocrites. I think Michael's not hypocritical. I just think he's a dangerous, radical, authoritarian ideologue. But many of his supporters probably would call themselves free speech warriors or believers and proponents. And what's happening here is very much not that. What do you guys think? Do let me know in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button while you are at it. Up next, we're going to check in on the TikTok witch community. Yes, this is real life. This is what my career in journalism has become. We are going to check in with the witches of TikTok, who tend to be very left-wing. But anyway, a video recently went viral of one of these self-described witches predicting the future in a particularly, I guess you could call it, morose fashion, and saying that Trump will die, and given even an exact date, a date that has now passed. Let's listen to this original video, which received almost 10 million views.
Trump is going to die on the 24th of August at 9 a.m. of a f***ing heart attack. And you can quote me on that. I don't know if it's going to be 9 a.m. my time or 9 a.m. his time, but it's probably going to happen around like 8:58 or something. I feel it. Yeah. Like 8:58 and a half. 24th of August. It's going to happen. I got my beers in the fridge chilling. And these are like beers I got for my birthday. So it's like celebratory, bro. And like I put the whole box in the fridge chilling. So yeah, I'm really excited. Happy Dead Donald Trump month, everyone. I'm really looking forward to it.
Hey, it's me quoting you on that because I'm looking around here and it is now several days past August 24th and didn't happen. So maybe now y'all woke white women on TikTok can stop believing in people who call themselves witches and psychics. And honestly, regardless, if you find yourself like cheering someone's death or like waiting to celebrate and throw a party when someone dies, that's a little strange. That's not very emotionally healthy, whether you love Trump or hate him, especially because him dying would just mean that you get J.D. Vance as president, who is arguably more competent, more efficient, and far more extreme, which again, if you're like a liberal, is actually bad news. I was more than anything, because obviously there's always going to be crazy people out there, right? And this TikTok witch who has just kept posting her normal content, not acknowledged any of these mistakes, by the way. I was kind of disturbed to see her, but I was more disturbed to see the comments. Hundreds of thousands of people liking these comments. For example, one person wrote, "Never skip a Hope Core video." 288,000 likes. 288,000 people liked that video saying like, "Oh, this is so hopeful and positive." Another person commented, "You better be right." 155,000 likes. Narrator, "She was not, in fact, right." Another person commented, "The 24th can't arrive fast enough." 106,000 likes. Another person said, "You promise? Question mark, question mark, question mark." 213,000 likes. One other person wrote, "Good luck with the prediction. I hope it will happen." 171,000 likes. I'm kind of worried. Like, we really do just have millions of people out here rooting and cheering on death and violence on the internet. That's fine. This is fine. But it really does seem like women on TikTok, particularly extremely lived out white women, are not taking the correct lesson from this, which is you shouldn't take witches or like fortune tellers on TikTok as serious sources for information. They're just like shifting the goalposts and asking like, "Oh, well, these other witches are saying it's actually going to happen in the end of August or next month." It's really remarkable. Take a look at this next video.
The witches were saying it's going to happen this week, right? Next week? By the end of August, they said it was going to happen. And I think we could really use this as individuals and as a society. So if anyone's a witch and has an update on when it's going to happen, could you please drop it in the comments right now for me? Thank you.
Well, she seems stable, well-adjusted. Now, some of these women are actually like lashing out at the TikTok witches for getting their hopes up. Listen to this.
I need the TikTok witch to come to the front. The one that made the prediction about August 24th. Side note to the rest of y'all TikTok witches and the other Etsy witches, we're cool. But to that girl, count your days. 'Cause what the fuck, bitch? It's 3:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A lot of us were waiting on this. What the
These women are not okay. Like, what is going on here? Is there something in the water? Did like a bad batch of psychiatric medications go out, so it's just not hitting and they're off their meds by accident or something? I really don't understand how we got here. How anyone ever took TikTok witches as a serious source for information. And this lady's all mad about this TikTok witch getting her hopes up. But then it's like, but don't worry, I still trust all you other TikTok witches. No, the point is right there. You're so close to getting it that like people saying they're magic on TikTok are not in fact magic and cannot in fact predict the future, but you're still not getting it. I'm worried about this. I genuinely am. When I see these people spiraling, because there's millions of people like this. Like, there's not just a couple people. You look in their comments and they're getting millions of views and hundreds of thousands of likes on all of these videos. And I don't think our country is headed for a good place when people are spiraling this badly and just totally losing touch with reality over their side losing political power in an election. Because frankly, that happens a lot. In a free and democratic society, your power changes hands. And the same way that it's bad when like MAGA people storm January 6th and threw a fit over losing power in 2020, the fact that millions of women are waiting on witches to celebrate news and fake predictions about Trump's death, yeah, that's also kind of bleak. But yeah, we're doing amazing. America is fine. What do you guys think? Are you big believers in TikTok witches? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, because that'll be it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Guys, remember to send in your voicemails for my Voicemail Friday episodes. Thank you to American Financing for sponsoring today's video, and we'll talk again real soon.